Exploring theology, doctrine, and all of the fascinating subjects in between, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, Dead Men Walking starts
now.
Turn you up there a little bit. Check, check, 1, 2. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Dead Men Walking Podcast. Ephesians 2, once dead in our trespasses, but now alive in Christ. Go check us out at DMWpodcast.com. You can find our snarky merch we got there. We got some fun t-shirts. The Wine 'em, Dine 'em, Romans 9 'em. That's selling pretty well. The How About You Shut Up and Let That Be Your Wisdom, Job 13:5. Sometimes you got to quote the scripture to the pagans. But we got lots of stuff on there, and it's selling, and it helps support the show, so DMWpodcast.com, you can check us out there. But first, at the top of the show, we like to mention our sponsors, Jacob Supply, Temperance, Michigan. Love this brother in the Lord. I mean, summer's in full swing. The projects are started. I don't care if you're in construction, if you're doing home projects, you got to go check this guy out. I mean, he's got 30, 40, 50% off. Building supplies, building products, and I mean, they're all name brand. He's got appliances, metal roofing, barns, decking, you name it, he's got it, and you're going to pay 30, 40, 50% cheaper than Home Depot, Menards, or Lowe's. We've got guys coming 10, 12, I think 12 and a half hours was the farthest when I was in the store a couple weeks ago. He drove up 12 hours, but they ship nationally too. You can check them out at jacobsupply.com or call them at 734-224-0978. Jacob Supply. Make sure you support this brother in the Lord. Cool. Now that we got the business out of the way, if you're watching this, you're going, who's this guy sitting next to Greg? We have someone in studio today. It's not over the old interwebs, and I always love in studio because it's just a little more personable. The conversation flows a little easier. But I'm excited to have you, Jeth Ott. Is it Ott? Is that how we say it?
OTT.
OTT, Ott,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Jeth Ott, and he's a local business owner, Little Brown Jug in Maybee, Michigan. And I love their signs in Maybee, Michigan. It's
maybe
like,
you'll be back.
Yeah, maybe you'll be back. Or it's like leaving maybe, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of play on words there.
M-A-Y-B-E.
We'll get you up on that mic.
That's the only difference is there's two E's in maybe. But yeah, we play on that all day long. Good.
That's cool. So, just happened to reach out to him. We've crossed paths many times over the years. Me doing my thing in real estate and county commissioner, you doing your stuff in chamber and business owner. And I was like, I got to have you on just because it's always interesting to talk to believers in the business world, especially with, we were just talking offline for a few minutes with business owners going through COVID and that debacle. And then just how our worldview is really shaped as entrepreneurs and business owners, and how we treat employees and what we do for them and how we treat our clients and customers. And I just find that all interesting. But before we get into that, give us a little bio on yourself so the listeners know a little bit about you, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for letting me be here, Greg. I've been super cool to be in this undisclosed location. My name is...
I got to change it. It's in Temperance. We've been going 4 years, dude. Everyone knows now. It's like I talk about, I got a big mouth. But.
Told you I should have taken a helicopter. I've been here on time. I'm a believer in Christ. I was blessed to be born and raised in a believing household. My parents got divorced when I was about 12. World kind of flipped there, and we kind of did my own. It was a really bad age because I was starting to get into my own will, trying to take my own will when you're 13 years old, thinking you're so. I'm a believer now. I've always been a believer. I've been at the Little Brown Jug for 23 years. 10 years last month, May 2014, I bought the restaurant.
So you worked there first?
13 years, all the way through college.
Gosh, I didn't realize
Started
that.
there when I was a senior in high school.
Wow, I don't know your story.
Worked for the old man for 13 years, and he treated me like family. He really did. Now I treat him like family.
Right.
It was a good thing. It was a good. We love the Village of Maybee. I love that restaurant, and it's just worked everywhere I went in life. The Little Brown Jug's been there. I did have to leave. I left in 2013, and I went suit and tie job for U.S. Foods. I was a territory manager there. That was the opportunity for me to come by the restaurant. So I had to leave to notice, how much I did there, I would imagine.
Right, yeah. Was that like food distribution, like a Cisco or something like that?
Exactly.
Kind of
okay. At the time, U.S. Foods was the nation's leading food distributor for commercial businesses.
Okay.
Now Cisco has taken over, maybe Gordon's, I'm not sure. Good company to work for and a good way to get out of the business. It really taught me one thing. I can probably do my job and be at home with my family at night.
Yeah.
At that time, I didn't have a family. Now I have a 8-year-old little girl and a 6-year-old little girl.
Awesome.
My 6-year-old special needs, which is a whole awesome new dynamic in my life, which is really special. But now, being at that corporate level, I figured out that I can do my job and still go home at night and let the other employees do it. So that's basically what I'm doing now at the restaurant is I'm still home with my family. So
do you, though? Do you have a pretty good home life being a small business owner, especially in the restaurant bar space, which seems like it's just super demanding and taxing?
I'm blessed with staff members that have been there the entire time. Before I was the owner, soon after I was the owner, even employees that I have a couple new employees like 3-6 months. They just get our feel there, and we're self-managed there. The employees are self-managed there. There's nobody breathing down their back. Very similar to what the Little Brown Jug was, 24 years ago when I started there.
Yeah.
Good. Employees that are willing to manage themselves and do a good job. That's really all we can. There's times where I'll have this cook, I'm like, man, if I could spend like 6 Fridays with that cook, I bet you that person would turn around and do a good job. Unfortunately, if I have to be there for 6 weeks in a row showing an employee how to do something, that 7th week when I leave, typically that employee is just going to do whatever they want anyway. So there's a balance there. When I bought the restaurant, again, 10 years ago, it was me and my wife, and we made a decision together. I knew we had to move back to Monroe, which is one of the best decisions, again, I made.
Where were we coming from?
Livonia.
Livonia,
So Monroe, Ypsilanti for school,
to
Maybee. Moved my girlfriend, my wife now, into Maybee, met her at Eastern. And then we moved to Canton, where she's originally from. And then we bought a house in Livonia, still traveling to Maybee every single 6-7 days a week. So
that's a drive.
It was a drive. It's 2 hours to your shift every day.
So you took your girlfriend, now wife, from Canton to Maybee.
Well, So she was living in the Canton area, and I moved her above the Jug.
Yeah.
At the little 2-bedroom apartment.
All right. So for those listening who are going, hey guy, I'm in Texas here. I don't know what you're talking about, or I'm in Albania, which I don't know how we got in the top 100 in Albania. That was pretty interesting last week. So Maybee's a very small part. Is it a village?
A farming village.
Farming village in Monroe County in Michigan. Canton's a little bit bigger. Livonia's a little bit bigger. I mean, not as big as like a Detroit or Grand Rapids, but city and things like that. So that's why I say that for the listeners. Yeah, you came to a farming community, and which is also the charm of the Little Brown Jug. It has been a staple in Monroe County for years and years and years. If you go Google it, you'll find reviews going back decades. Yeah. You'll find it on blogs, people going, top 5 places you got to visit. It'll be like a national park, Little Brown Jug. And you're like, how'd that get on the list? You know what I mean?
We're incredibly blessed. We do a lot of things right there. And
like the River Raisin Battlefield, this bar in a farming village in the middle of the county. And you're like, oh, so there's like a history there too that was probably a little bit, I would imagine, I won't put words in your mouth, but taking on that kind of mantle of the history of it and then going, how do I improve this? How do we, continue it, make it better, which I think you've done.
I feel like we have, again, with our staff. And we, one thing we really, it's about the community. We're blessed with, like, the people that don't know, we're blessed with like 6 surrounding communities around that little village within 10 miles.
Yeah.
So we get the Carltons, the Milans, the Monroe, Milans, Idas, all those, they just come to Maybee, and we do a lot of special stuff.
Yeah, well, if people didn't know where this undisclosed location was now, they do now. We just named everything around us.
Right here.
But no, that's good, yeah.
Yeah. So I left, went to U.S. Foods, came back and bought the business, married my wife, culinary arts at Monroe County Community College. I did...
which they have a great...
It was a
culinary.
Unfortunately, it's no more.
But in the past, it
Chef
was.
Chef Kevin and Chef Vicky were top shelf. They were good people. Really good program. Got a bachelor's in hospitality management at Eastern, where I met my wife.
So I want to touch on something really quick, if you don't mind. So if people who've listened for a while, they know I've got a little touch of probably jumping around in the head, a little ADHD or something. Right. Or maybe my wife goes, "You don't have ADHD. You're just selfish and want to talk about what's in your head." I'm like, well, okay, maybe that too. I'll work on it. But something you said earlier about the culture too, you kind of said, oh, we got a really good kind of feeling or vibe or culture. I mean, I don't want to just like kind of pass over that. That has to be created though in a business. Like you can't just, someone just doesn't go, oh, we just got this great culture and it just happened, right? Doesn't it have to be maintained and nurtured and massaged? And can you talk a little bit about that as a believer and a Christian and going, oh, we got this great culture. Well, what are the things that you did to go, hey, people come in and go, I want to work here? Because also we can talk about this. There's a whole generation of people, whole group of people that don't want to work and don't want to work hard. No. They have no work ethic. I don't want to say no, but lack of work ethic. And I don't want to be the old man on the podcast saying it's my generation too. Yeah. I know guys in their 40s that don't want to work.
I say it to older guys, even in their 50s and 60s. They've seen this young generation come into the workforce, and they're not great employees. They don't have good work ethic. They're not on time. There's a multitude of things. We're not going to badmouth people here, but unfortunately, the 50s, the 40s, and the 50s and 60s-year-olds, they're sitting there looking at these guys with no repercussions.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, why the heck am I sitting here doing all the hard work? And now they're getting smart, not getting smart, but getting smart on being lazy. And I'm seeing it in a whole different angle with the 40, 50, 60-year-olds. Okay, the culture. We had like a catchphrase. They had a catchphrase in the 70s and 80s. It said, "We're the Little Brown Jug, where friends go to make friends," or something like that. And when I bought the restaurant, I didn't know what I was doing when I originally did it, but I coined the term "the friendliest place in town." And I looked around. It was like the Next Door Lounge, Silver Star. I was looking at a couple other places. I was like, in town of Maybee, we can be the friendliest place. I put that on the menus, I put that on the website, I give it to every new employee and every single employee. It's almost overnight, even 10 years ago, it turned into a call of action.
Yeah.
To where we're saying, crap. We're the friendliest place in town.
So now the branding became your mission statement too then, huh?
Yeah, so now we got to act like the friendliest place in town. Seriously.
Or a bunch of liars.
Well, and that's the thing. So we're happy when we're working, and that's what Christ tells us to do. We're not supposed to go around being grumpy and kicking fryer baskets and things like that. It's about being a happy chef. I always said a happy chef makes happy food.
Yeah.
You can tell the mentality or the attitude of the kitchen when you get your plate in the dining room. So again, long-term staff, taking care of them. I hate this term, taking care of them like family, but I really do. I have to be careful. I have a tendency to be too personal with folks.
Sure.
Maybe get into things where it's none of my business, but I'm there for my staff as well. They know me as an alcoholic, but a sober alcoholic.
Right.
And that right there is massive in a kitchen setting where drugs and alcohol are just rampant. And that's just the industry. The people that work night shifts and that are serving drinks all day, when they're done, they get toasted. Sure. And just like I did for a majority of my adult life. So having that as a man of faith, as being an addict myself, because I had a big problem with opiates. I got 13 years off opiates there.
Praise God.
By the grace of God. So I think I bring something like that. I have a healthy marriage with kids that are in school, that we go to church. So I'm there for my staff in different ways, and I feel like we pay a fair share price too.
Right.
We can I shouldn't say this, but we overlook some things.
Sure.
Because again, everybody has positives and negatives. Everybody has positive things they're doing in their life, and everybody has, this person, obviously they're going to be late, but it's one of the best servers I have. How are we going to turn it around?
Right.
Help them. It's not just about the Little Brown Jug and being here at 4:30. If you find ways to be on time in your life is going to get easier. And that's kind of what the Little Brown Jug is. We're not just trying to get through the shift. We're trying to get better.
Yeah.
We're trying to get better today than we were yesterday.
Yeah.
It's hard to find groups. That's what I have in AA. They come to those meetings. I was at the shelter this morning. That's my home group. And it's hard to it's hard to find another organization or another group of people that said, like, listen, this weekend I was short with my wife, and I got to be better about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do better today to not growl at my wife when I get home. A lot of people are like, well, my wife didn't do or she didn't do this and do this. That's why I growled at her.
Right.
We try to do the same thing at the restaurant, not an AA meeting, of course, but the same thing. Let's do better today than we did yesterday. And and if we make it smaller, I think it's easier. So we got a good feeling, and we got a lot of good repeat customers, a lot of folks in the community that we've helped in a lot of different ways. And I think that has it just has a really good feeling even in the building when you walk in. So.
No, I like I said, I haven't been out there in a while, but now that we're talking about it, I'm gonna have to get back out there and visit. But I would say too, just as a business owner or manager or even influencer in your place of business, if you're project managing or touching other employees in some way, there's some discernment that needs to be there. So someone who's late all the time, like you were saying, doesn't mean they can't get ready fast. It usually means there's something else going on in their life where there's a deeper issue of unorganized or maybe some, emotional or mental problems going on to where that's why they're habitually late. And it takes a little discernment. Now I think like you said, there's a line that you don't want to cross, personal line. But at the same time, having that wisdom and discernment to go, okay, how can we help this person to help themselves in kind of looking past just the action of being late. That's just one example. I think that makes a really good owner, an entrepreneur, a team leader. I think it's biblical. I have my Bible open to Proverbs 21. I was just reading through it a few days ago. One of the best pieces of advice my father ever gave me was, hey, there's 31 Psalms and 31 days in the month. Proverbs. Read a proverb a day. And there's so many things in there that you can relate to business, to where you draw out of that and you go, oh, that's where I can use that kind of wisdom or knowledge or discernment. And I think that really makes the difference when you own a business or when you're an entrepreneur. That's what we like to talk about here too. The worldview, a believer's worldview, is vastly different from the secular's worldview. And I would argue even the secular's worldview of a successful entrepreneur is borrowed heavily from the Christian worldview.
I believe so.
Right. You read like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? I don't know. It's a classic book. And in the book, he says, I didn't understand this. He goes, but the rich dad told me the more I give away, the more I get. And he goes, I don't know. And he goes, in the author of that book isn't a believer. And he goes, to this day, I don't understand it. But the more generous you are with your money and your time, you seem to gain more. And I go, well, a biblical concept of reaping what you sow, what you will reap what you put into the ground, it will come to fruition, right? And so I look at it and I go, I can take almost every successful secular business person or entrepreneur and see where they have borrowed biblical principles from
Absolutely.
that.
Anything good from Christ.
Yeah.
Anything good
Right.
here is from Christ. So
Right.
if they're doing
Absolutely.
anything good, whether they know it or not, is from God.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
I've been blessed with so much of God's grace myself that, again, I can't do anything. The most Christ-like thing I can do is share His grace that He shared with me with the people around me.
Amen.
And you can't be a hitching post where people just kick you all the time and you're getting bullied or anything. You still have to stand up for yourself. Sure. At a certain point, that person, we don't want to get too personal why that person's late, but we at a certain point, if it's affecting business and your employees,
yeah,
it's not going to work out. So you still have to put your foot down, but in a Christ-like manner.
Yeah.
We have a representation of a man that Jesus wasn't a business owner, but He walked this earth and He dealt with difficult people.
Yeah.
And all our lives, no matter if you're going.
Well, he could have been. I don't know what union was he in as a carpenter. He might have been his own.
Was there a union then?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. He could have been. I would think it was one-offs and custom orders
He probably
back
would
then.
be. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Kind of a business owner. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Let me ask you something though, and let me know if it's getting too personal. But I'm always intrigued by this because you said recovering alcoholic. I think we both know Joe Bellino too, who's our state senator. I always find that interesting because he's recovering and then owned a liquor store. You own a bar. How does that work? You're a believer. You own a bar, and look at if anyone's listened for any amount of time, they know I take the stance that the Lord gives us sharp objects to play with: tobacco, beer, sex. All these things are very sharp objects. They're things that are to ultimately glorify God and can be misused. Correct. So on this podcast, we don't sit here and go, oh, Christians absolutely cannot drink. No, absolutely not.
No.
The Bible says,
I own a
do
bar.
not, don't be drunkard, right? And I would say be very careful when you use those things, like a tobacco, like a alcohol or something like that. But I always wondered for someone who has said, hey, look, I have recognized something in my life that was unhealthy, and I've chosen not to partake in it, like alcohol or drugs. How does that work for when you own a bar? You know what I mean? Is there temptation there? Is it you far removed from that to where there isn't? Do those conversations come up, or is it just no?
All the time. Okay. At heart, I'll always have pride. I'll always be selfish.
We all will. Mm-hmm.
That's something that I didn't realize that I was a controlling person. I was a prideful person, and all these things until I put the bottle down, and that was a little rude awakening, because really what I thought, I was like, Jeth, you're a perfect darn guy. You just drink a little too much. If we could put the bottle of whiskey down, golly, think of it. Now, what had happened was I put that bottle of whiskey down, and I realized how broken of a person I really was.
Yeah. The whiskey was an excuse to keep being broken. Yeah,
it was an escape.
Yeah,
I couldn't deal with what I was doing in life, so I escaped every night. I picked, and this is God. It was September 16th. We're still are members of Grace Lutheran Church on Monroe Street, over there by Broadway Market.
Yeah.
I'd been a member when we lived in Monroe, or we lived in Livonia. We were going to a Lutheran church out there. So when we moved back to Monroe after buying the restaurant, we went right to Grace Lutheran. I stood in front. I'd always been an usher. They asked me to read the scripture.
Right.
So the 16th, I go up there. I didn't know at the time, but at 10:30 in the morning, I was still drunk from the night before. Smelling it, I can taste it. I'm sitting up there, and I've always been a decent public speaker. Of course, I'm ruining that today.
No,
if I have something to read, like Jacob's Supply, oh shoot, I could be like I'm on the radio, and I'm just reading the scripture. So I go up there and I read the 2 verses, and I go back down, and after the church ended, all the ladies, all the church ladies. Oh, Jeth. Oh, we loved how you read the scripture. We wish you could read every Sunday. And they just kept on coming up. And Greg, usually that'd be right up my alley, my pridefulness and my sinfulness. And I'd be like, yeah
that sounds pretty good.
I felt like the biggest phony in the world because I knew I was drunk. I knew I wasn't taking in the word that I was, and that's the kind of believer I was then. It was more like this. I wasn't praying on the way here like I did today.
Right.
Only if I had gotten into the ditch on the way here. Right, that's when I started praying.
Oh yeah.
That's that trench spirituality, and there's no room for that in my heart. So I went home that night and got drunk. What did you imagine? Imagine that, right? So
no,
I
can
felt like
that.
crap all day. I felt weird. When I woke up in the morning, every morning I woke up and it was always a panic. And there would be a certain amount of things that I had to do about my dad. I'd go downstairs. I had this ritual before the girls woke up, and one of the rituals was I'd go outside, smoke a cigarette, and then I'd go through my cell phone.
Yeah.
Make sure I didn't text anybody and make sure I didn't
do anything
make some
dumb,
post. Yeah. Say something politically, for gosh sake. And in the background, still to this day, if you Google Monroe, Michigan AA, a PDF downloads in the background. And there was a PDF downloaded in my background, and it was a list of all the AA meetings. And there it was, 9:30 Oaks Righteousness, Monday morning.
Okay.
Me and my pride, again.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm definitely not a homeless person. I'm a business owner. I got a brand new truck. I have nothing in common with these people.
Yeah.
I went there and it changed my entire life.
Really?
I really, hands down, first meeting ever. And I never drank again. I never drank again. Now, that whole long story leading up to it, my next stop after my first AA meeting, and I had a 24-hour coin in my pocket that I was just gripping, right? I walked into Little Brown Jug. And I walked in my office where I have a liquor cabinet where I'd always just snatch bottles on the way home, whether I was drinking vodka or Crown Royal or whatever, put the money in the till sometimes, grab a bottle. There it is. And then when I go out of my office, there's the banquet room with a whole bar filled with liquor and beer. And then I go through the middle dining room to the original bar, and there's another bar.
Wow. So this wasn't stop drinking and then bought the bar. It was.
Oh no,
You owned it.
Oh, it was done.
Yeah.
I was the owner for almost 4 years at that time.
Okay.
Again, working there for 18 years at that point.
Yeah.
13 years before that, being the owner 4 years. And I just sat there and I didn't know what I was going to do. But that's what I needed. I needed to hit like whatever my bottom was, and even if it was, I tell guys, I think good. I'm a grateful alcoholic. I am grateful that I never got in any trouble with the law. I never, for God's sake, I didn't hurt anybody. But I did so much hurt to me in my head and my soul. It was all, there's no escaping this world. And what I was doing is I was escaping it, whether it be in the restaurant, whether it be anything. I was escaping it every single night. What I found out getting sober, and it's a darn good thing I got sober, because everything in my life was barely holding on.
Okay.
So there was same thing with at the restaurant, whatever's going on there, I had an escape every single night to not worry about the restaurant.
Yeah.
in that escape, I continued to make more and more and more and more mistakes while being drunk, to where I woke up, and not only was that first issue that I was trying to escape, but then it was all the mistakes I made while I was drinking. So I had this whole new, this whole new load on me.
Yeah.
And that was just infiltrating all through my life. It was in relationships. It was in my faith. It was in my business and everything.
Really quick, I would interject and say for those listening too, and go, well, I don't drink. Right? It's like any type of addiction, anything that is an idol in your life, everything you're saying can happen with that. I don't care if it's food. I don't care if it's some type of emotional control, if it's porn, if it's whatever it is. I think Luther said it best when he said, whatever your heart clings to in times of trouble, that is your true God. Right?
I appreciate you quoting Luther for
you
me.
like that?
I saw it written. No, you didn't.
No, I didn't write that. No, it's one of my favorite quotes, because it's so to the point, because we put all these things before Christ. And I just want listeners to know too, you're talking very specifically about alcohol, but this is any addiction, any idol in your life, all these issues that you were having, because I've had them too with other things. They will become those same type of issues.
Absolutely. I'm an addictive person.
Me too,
addictive people, I will always have something. Even, we got to watch out for these alcoholics that go to sugar and sweets. I got probably 30 pounds. I mean, you can't believe it, but I got probably 30 pounds on me in the last almost 6 years of not drinking, just because I'm eating. Now I always have to be careful, because I'm an addict of nature, and anything that tastes good, smells good, feels good, I want more, and I wanted more yesterday.
Yeah.
So I got to be careful with just what. So going back to, let's say, being the struggles of being a sober guy at a bar, not many. I'm not an anonymous drunk. Speaking of, now that you brought up Joe Bellino was sitting, and we were having a sit down with another guy, and I'd never met that guy. And I'd probably about 7 months sober. And I said, hey, da-da-da-da. And I said, I'm Jeth. Oh, I'm an alcoholic too. And Joe goes like this. I said, what? He goes, you're not getting it. I'm like, I'm not getting what? He said, you're not getting the whole Alcoholics Anonymous ideal. And I'm like, crushed me. I had 7 months sober. I was like, I'm going to meetings all the time, read the big book, work on my steps. What are you talking about? He goes, you're not anonymous. I said, no, I'm not. And I just said that at the meeting this morning. You have to be careful, because there was a young lady that got turned down for life insurance. She is 3.5 years sober, and because she said she's an alcoholic, but it's been almost 4 years, they wouldn't give her life insurance. And the same thing happened to me about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So you gotta.
So can I interject here and say something really quick, because I had to go to some of those. They were court ordered in my 20s. Okay,
we have those too.
Very many times.
Good people.
Yeah, and I remember sitting there, and even in my 20s, and I said the sinner's prayer at 7, and the Lord saved me at 24. So everyone on the podcast that listens knows I say that. So there's a heart change at 24. But in my late teens, early 20s, I'm sitting in those meetings, and I'm going, yeah, but even then I could realize in my depravity and all the things I was doing, and very addictive personality, and should be dead. And hey, if 1 is good, 10's even better, right?
11.
Right? Yeah, right. That type of mentality. Lots of pills and drinking and stuff. But I remember thinking there, and the bone I had to pick with AA was, man, a lot of these guys are just kind of still sitting under this mantle of I'm an alcoholic. Like, I get it. You have to say I'm an alcoholic, but just dwelling on this thing of, yeah, I haven't had a drink in 22 years. But then they would relive some of the stories that happened in 1978, 1992. And you're like, okay, I get that, sharing that. But I go, man, if, whom Christ has set free is free indeed. So it's like, I don't know if I would be good at, and I'm not saying anything against the meetings, they are helpful. But at the same time, I feel like you have the right mentality. And if I'm picking up what you were saying, is you're not going around going, hey, my name's Jeff, and by the way, I'm an alcoholic,
Absolutely
right?
It's like, I'm not ripping guys off bar stools.
Right.
I'm selling them whiskey.
Right.
You're not going to make anybody do anything they don't want to. And what I'll say about AA as a whole, for me personally, and the guys that have been around the table like myself for almost 6 years, there's a lot of guys that have been there 30, 40 years. It's not about drinking. It's not about not drinking. I'm fairly confident that I'm not going to drink tonight, Greg.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about tomorrow, but I'm fairly confident in right now, how I've gotten today managed, that I'm not going to be drinking tonight. It's a better way to live.
Yeah.
the 12 steps for me were life-changing because, again, my ego and my pride, I had built myself that I was the only one that understood and the only one that could do anything. It was a very, very selfish and lonely life to where, AA is more about, okay, you got to put you got to admit that you're, an alcoholic. I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. And then you got to, you got to find a higher power. Why would I find a higher power? I already got God. No, Jeth, you got to realize that you're not the biggest and the best dancer and that. Everywhere I went in, I wanted to be the best looking guy. I wanted to be the best dressed guy. I wanted to be the best.
Sure.
And alcohol really brought that out of me in my mind. Made me a better dancer. Made me a better, in my mind, everything.
Yeah.
I have to wake up every morning almost and look myself in the eyes and say, Jeth, you're not the most important person. The 12 steps help me put that in Christ.
Yeah. So let me ask you, if you're saying, well, I already got God, but find a higher power, what's the difference between the two? I'm not familiar with the program. Like I know it's kind of anonymous when they use kind of ambiguous terms when they say higher power because it's not one religion or one doctrine or theology or whatever. But what do you mean when you say, well, I already have God, I have to find a higher power? Isn't God looking to Christ your...
I didn't have a higher power 7 years ago. Even 6 years ago, I was still drinking. I did not have a higher power.
I see what you're saying.
I was my higher power.
Right.
Again, I only talked to God if I had a really bad relationship with Christ, and that it was almost like a barter.
Sure.
I'm going to do this for you because you did this for me. And if I was
good this week, maybe I'll get blessed.
And if I was so sick in my mind that I thought that I had caught up to par and I did something that I wasn't making up for, well, that'll be something that I'm going to do because I'm bound to do something stupid next week. That's no relationship with Christ.
The big thing that changed for me in my 20s is when I'm reading through the scriptures too, and I'm seeing when you were yet his enemy, Christ died for you. And you go, oh, yeah, that's right. God is outside of time. So he's beside me in that great moment we have together. He's also beside me in that horrible thing I'm going to do next week. And his blessings and grace don't change at all based on what I've done and haven't done because the imputed righteousness of Christ shows me as righteous before him. So you go, wow.
Grace is still, for us earthly beings, we don't understand how, we're going...
I would say for guys like you and I who are workers and who get things done and grace is a really weird thing because it's free. And you go, well, hold on. I got to earn it, or I did this thing to, to get it. And it really messes with our minds. And you can even get trapped in that barter system of who God was. So it sounds like you're saying too, and this was me in my 20s, is I didn't even have a right view of who God or who Christ truly was.
That's correct.
Because I was my God.
He was in my life. I was the most important person in the room.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You look back and you go, oh my gosh, how did anyone even stand me?
That's what I said. You guys.
I still think that today.
I was buying a lot of drinks. You know what I mean?
That can get you ways with friends. Yeah,
funny side story. I don't make this all about alcoholism, but
That's okay.
Big thing was opening day at Tiger at Comerica Park, and I had my same buddy that we took every single year, and I paid for the tickets, and he drove, and that was always a thing. I'd always set myself up to where I had a driver. Don't get me wrong, I drank and drove plenty of times, hundreds of times. But on a big day like opening day or a concert, I'd get a ride lined up. I'd buy them all their drinks. I'd buy them all their food. I'd put gas. I'd buy their ticket. And I would still be a ridiculous, miserable drunk the whole time. Just awful.
Yeah.
Opening day would have been 2019. Asked my buddy Adam, I said, hey, man, not drinking anymore. It's been like 7 months. Do you still want to go to opening day? He goes, absolutely, man.
Right.
I was like, we're not going to get there at 7 in the morning. We could get there at 10. And then we can walk around. And we were sitting there, and I remember we were sitting in our seats, and it was probably like the 5th inning. And I never remember sitting in our seats that other opening day. We were always just out. You know what I mean? And I said, man, are you having a good time, man? I was like, because I feel like I'm boring you or something. He goes,
was he still drinking at the time, or?
Yeah, okay, but he's a safe drinker.
Right, yeah.
He can have two beers at a ball game and go home and eat a hot dog.
Those weirdos.
Weird. If I have 2 beers and I'm sitting with your family, the last time I tried to drink 2 beers at Comerica Park while I was drinking, I was running away getting beers for everybody, but I was going to the liquor bar. and I was getting 3 or 4 shots, and
For
I
you,
was bringing
and
back
then
the
back
line
the-
and Kugels for everybody else, right?
Yeah.
That's just the guy I was. But no, he's a safe drinker. He can go to a game and have no beers, which is really even weird, which not weird now for me. But anywho,
So he said, "Yeah, I'm having fun."
he goes, if you were still drinking this year, I'd already told myself I wasn't going to go with you again.
Wow. So it was
So
the opposite of what you thought.
I thought
He's like,
people
I'm
were
not going if you're drinking. You're thinking, I'm not drinking. He's not going to want to hang out.
still a dear friend to this day.
That's awesome.
We go on family vacations and stuff, and but that really put into focus because really, Greg, man, I was spending about $400 or $500 on Adam every opening day.
Right.
Now, the way I looked at things, if
Yeah.
I spent $500 out of my pocket for you, and I thought we had a good time, well, we should be best friends.
Right.
Me spending $500 on booze and all that stuff for him still wasn't enough to
Right.
even want to hang out with me. So people weren't putting up with us. They weren't putting up with me. It was a matter of time. That was another thing. Relationships and friendships were on the
I'm
fringe
guessing
there.
you were probably high functioning too. Like you
Had
could
to be.
handle business, so that feeds into it too. Like, dude, I'm getting stuff done. I mean, sometimes I remember back in the day, I would almost feel more creative. I'd get more stuff accomplished.
That's
I
what
would,
I said.
and you go, yeah. And then when you stop, you're like, what the heck?
I
was
wasn't
that?
doing anything.
Yeah.
I was just making, and that's the thing, because I thought, like, again, like,
I wasn't doing anything.
yeah, I couldn't even, and that's one thing. After sober up, I'm building back to building Legos.
Right.
I didn't build Legos for 20 years because I couldn't even put 2 pieces together when I'm in
Wow.
a bottle. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So how creative are you when you're drinking? Can you build Legos? I couldn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Very
again, that was that whole thing. Oh, I got to do it to go to sleep, and I got to do it for people to like me and all that stuff. And that's all those things in sobriety that you have to jump over. Again, it was a risk. Again, in my ego, when I first got sober, I said, well, now, how can I be a sober guy and still expect Greg Moore to bring his family in and you to have 2 Pilsners?
Right.
What are they going to think of me? Again, that's that earthly thinking that I can't control. That's one of those things that I tried to control for all my life, and I only made myself look more silly, trying to make you think of what you think about me.
Right.
I'm just not going to lie to you. I'm not going to cheat you, and I'm not going to steal anything from you.
Right.
And then I'm going to share my love of Christ with you. I'm going to be a good brother, and I'm going to set down, boundaries for you and me, no matter how the relationship goes. But that's the guy I am, and that's how it is in the restaurant.
Yeah.
If you want to think that I'm some snooty, because guys still need to get cut off.
Sure.
People overdrink. We are there again as a guy that's sober, owning a restaurant with bar. We care more about your safety now
Yeah.
than we did, because the other times I'd be sitting down drinking with you and I wasn't concerned about my safety, let alone your
yours.
safety.
Yeah. Probably not even the right mind to be concerned about it. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
So guys still need to get cut off, and they'll throw that in my face. That's been
Really?
thrown in my oh yeah. Oh, you're some big, what they call big AA thumper or whatever. I said, okay, Greg, whatever you think, man.
Yeah.
Whatever. And again,
That's probably some insecurities being put on you, I think.
that's usually what it is.
From the alcoholics.
That's usually what it is.
chair, yeah.
And I'm not here to gain. I got enough shortcomings of my own.
Right.
I am not here. And usually those guys come in and they apologize, and they're still great customers to this day. But it's funny. It's different because, like, there's people like my buddy Adam that can have a couple beers and smoke a cigar at the ball game, and then he can have a hot dog within 4 hours and drive his family home.
Sure.
And I have to be aware of that too. I'm just not that guy.
Right.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
That's okay too. I'm still human, So, obviously we're more of a restaurant than a bar,
Yeah.
but we're still having parties and concerts and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
No, it's a cool hang too, for sure. My thing was too, is just using it as an excuse of, well, the Lord has given me the freedom to do this. Why can't I partake in this? I'm doing it responsibly. It's at my house. It's with clients. It's whatever. And then praying one day and just really had this thought come into my mind and go, yeah, there's all kinds of things that the Lord that makes that it's acceptable to do, and there's some things that you just can't do. You might not be, whether it's for a season, forever, whatever it is, because we were talking offline too, saying I haven't drank since October, and I don't know how long that's going to last. Right. I just knew that, going back to the Luther quote, stressed out, got work problems.
And that's when you're reaching for it.
And I reached for it and went, oh, so that's my God. I'm not getting blackout drunk at that point, but that was definitely my God.
It's doing something to your mindset.
It's doing something to me. And then, believe me, I've noticed times too. I don't have to be staggered down drunk to also say cutting words or send a text to someone that is inappropriate or respond to a client not in time. And you're just going, oh, this just gums up everything. It's just only going to progressively get worse, right? And so then I said, oh, and just like you were saying, I go, oh, it was the pride of me thinking I deserve this thing.
Correct.
And the Lord goes, oh no, there's all kinds of things that you just can't partake of, and I get to say if you can or can't.
That's the beautiful thing of God, my Father, God the Father,
right,
giving us free will. You talk about grace and free will. That's another heck of a thing that we just. So you're gonna let me be down here, and I can do whatever I want, right? With repercussions, of course, through the law or whatever, or you could say, this is what you need to do, and you give me the opportunity to do the right thing. That I had far too much free will in my 20s and 30s. And seriously, free will, that again creates that God-like mentality that, and I think that's unfortunately, getting to that a little bit younger generations. Christ in the house is hurting us. It's hurting us in schools. It's hurting us in the street. It's hurting everybody. Because again, our culture, in my opinion, I don't want to get too political or whatever. We can get political as you want.
Doesn't matter to me. Whatever.
There's no, I say higher power because that's what they say in the big book. And what I'll say too is if you've worked your 12 steps thoroughly, God is your higher power. There's really there's nobody sitting at the tables after 30 years that are saying anything other than God. They're not saying the science and things like that. But they don't have a higher power, which again gives them grace, gives them a blueprint of how to live and how to treat others. And then a certain thing happens where we don't trust the teachers anymore. Yeah. And now we can't trust the doctors anymore. Yeah. And look at our politicians.
Definitely can't trust them.
Look at our judges. And these young people are now going out into the streets. They can't trust a police officer. They can't trust. They're right. The teacher's wrong. There's no faith or basis of doing things for other people. They're their own God. Yeah. And they're fully living off the emotions they're feeling right there in that moment. And it's scary.
A fool is wise in his own eyes. Proverbs says. Yeah, absolutely. It was big for me to also realize, too, I was in my late 20s, really started watching a lot of R.C. Sproul. He was a famous theologian. He passed away a few years ago. They called him the professor. He was this white guy with a fro and a seersucker suit, and he would tape all his lectures and sermons and, in the 70s. And he wore the seersucker suit in the 70s, not up until
Tell me about that suit. What is that?
Just kind of like the big lapel. Think like 70s, you know what I mean? Big lapels.
Prom style.
Prom, yeah. But, even understanding the sovereignty of God versus the free will of man, meaning the free will of man, how his nature is to want to sin. And I saw him tell someone once, oh, you have free libertarian free will to do whatever you want, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Go up on that roof and go fly, across the street. Well, I can't do that. I'm not a bird. So it's not in your nature to fly is what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Well, free will is the same way. You have the nature, the propensity to want to sin in the depravity that we are in under sin nature. So, my belief is, and we may differ on this, is we do have a free will, but it is within the nature of sinning. It is in the nature. We have a natural propensity to want to lie, steal, cheat, be prideful, right? And it isn't until Christ saves us, until we recognize that depravity, until we understand the parable of the borrower, right? The one that I absolutely love, where he goes to the king and he says basically he owed a lifetime of debt. He couldn't have ever paid it off. He says, "King, please forgive me. I'll do whatever you want. I can't pay it off." King says, "You're forgiven." The guy goes right out, finds his brother who owes him $10 essentially, and goes, "Where's my money? Where's my money? I want him in debtor's prison." So for me, I look at the things I've done. I look at the way I've treated people. I look now to the way I should treat people and go, I've been forgiven such a huge debt. How dare I not wake up every day grateful and then go out and say, I have to show that grace and that mercy to other people I interact with, believers or not, right? I would say especially to non-believers, so we can reflect Christ in all we do. So it's this... it's this place of gratefulness, I would say, which sounds like you have a lot of that too, because you have a past probably very close to mine where you look at it and you go, I wish I wouldn't even remember most of the things I did when I was partaking in those things, and especially just shaking my fist at God too, because I was the man. I knew it was right. I don't need you. And then, part of my testimony is the Lord really just knocked me on my butt within a 24-hour period. I mean, took my 6-year girlfriend at that time, now my wife of 18 years this November, took my job, my money, my band, my place to live, my car. I mean, I had nothing. I mean, literally nothing. And I'm laying on a mattress in a loft in Detroit, in the city of Detroit.
I didn't know this.
And sobbing and going, well, maybe I still have Christ. Do I still have him? Is he And from there, it was a 3 to 4 year just, okay, let's put all the traditions aside of everything you've been taught in your non-denominational churches and Pentecostal churches, and let's see what the Bible has to say. And start actually reading the Bible instead. Yes. And listen to your pastor. Most of them are doing good, and they're preaching the word, hopefully. And if you're not in a Bible preaching church, get to one. Mm-hmm. I don't care what denomination it is. Make sure they're opening that word like how you were reading the word. We can disagree on Lutheranism and Presbyterianism, but you're opening the word and you're reading it. And read what the Bible said and really fell in love and went, oh my gosh, this is what the doctrines of grace was. By Christ alone, by faith alone, by grace alone, for the glory of God alone. Yeah, this makes sense. And it was only through that transformation of my heart and mind, like the Bible truly says, replacing that heart of stone with the heart of flesh, that I go, oh, it's not about me. Right. I rightly understand who God is. It says Proverbs 13 says the beginning of wisdom is to fear God. And it's two words there, to not only reverence, but to have an actual healthy fear. Kind of like when your mom said, hey, when your dad comes home, he'll take care of this for me. Like the Father God. There is some of that, because look, we can make God to be out mercy and grace and justice, and he is that, but he's also a God of wrath and of justice and of setting evildoers straight. And he's all of that completely in his character. Amen. And to fully understand that, not just kind of pick what part of God I like. Well, I like the part that forgives me.
Well, that's what's so important about the biblically based theology of churches. Yeah. I think that there's so many churches and there's so many individuals that are taking this faith-based approach at life, and they're just picketing. Yeah. These we little need the fullness of you have God, to take the whole thing.
So let me ask you, as we wrap this up here too.
We're wrapping up.
Well, we don't have to. I mean, we've already been going 50 minutes, 47 minutes. I mean, okay. You get two talkers together, two extroverts, we'll be here all day.
We're doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, I can just tell you about my day. We're doing all kinds of stuff at Glory Christ.
So where are you at now for church?
Grace Lutheran.
Grace Lutheran, that's right. It's on Monroe Street, isn't it?
Pastor Woody, yes.
Yeah. So what brought you there? What do you like about it?
You know what brought me there was, again, there's a guy named Ike Smith, a good friend of mine. We get into a lot of stuff. I'm part of his nonprofit, a One Sheep ministry.
One Sheep
ministry.
Oh, sheep.
Sheep,
like
about
a sheep.
Christ going out and getting
one sheep
the
ministry.
shepherd going and getting the one sheep. That's
I like that.
Yeah, and we do a lot of food distributions, a lot of which is right up my God.
Wait, were you guys doing stuff during COVID for food distribution? I think I might have met him during that. No.
I wasn't working a ton. He probably was. I think
I did. I was working with a nonprofit that was doing food distribution. I think we ran across each other.
I'm sure he did. Like one of those gleaners things.
Yep.
That's Ike Smith. Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
I saw him twice today. He's a dear brother of mine.
Okay, so you're friends with him.
He was doing a barbecue competition at Grace Lutheran. And I ended up, and being in Livonia, living there, I won the darn thing like 3 or 4 years in a row. So when
the barbecue competition
for One Sheep Ministry, it was
and it was at that church.
It was at that church, and so
what were you barbecuing?
I was doing pork. I was just doing pork.
Yeah,
just pork, and
that's
just my
like
barbecue. And we're gonna have one in August
15th. You better keep me on speed dial.
I'll give you a call. It's a good competition. We got probably there'll probably be about 15 different restaurants and different guys out there competing, and I'll be there competing.
So I've got
too.
6 pork butts in the deep freezer right now. So when we have people over from church, we'll have 3 or 4 families. We got a lot of kids in our family. We have big families at our church. So that'll be 25, 30 people. But yeah, I'll do an 18, 20-hour smoke on it.
Good
I'll
man.
get the deep fryer out. We'll do fresh cut fries. My wife makes the
Look at
coleslaw.
you.
Dude, you got to come over for it.
I like that.
It's great.
I
It's
just
good
wait on the
eats.
invitation, I guess.
Yeah, when you're not drinking, you really like that good food. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm an eater now. Yeah, because you're eating because you're hungry. Not
Right. So you won the competition.
was-
You're at the church.
So it was like a no-brainer. When we came back to Monroe, we were looking for a Lutheran church. We jumped into Grace, and we met just that wonderful families and people there. And again, the biblical knowledge, and I got sober there.
Okay.
I got sober
that's
there, and that's really where my relationship with Christ actually developed. Because again, I couldn't have a relationship with Christ drinking and using. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work.
You can't.
I was my higher power, and the drug was. So I found it. But that's what I tell folks about church. It's, I didn't go there. I was there because Ike, a Christian guy and an addict himself, showed his grace to me, and he welcomed me in that barbecue competition, knowing that I probably reeked of liquor. But that's where we need to be on a church. Is we need to go back out and we need to shepherd these people, and we need to accept them. Again, you on a couch in Detroit, me drunk on the concrete of my garage with everything I thought was still intact. That's where Christ finds us.
Yeah.
And that's where guys like us, we can, what are we pretty prideful of?
Yeah. We have
And
nothing to,
And that's where he finds us, and that's where he picks us up.
That's interesting.
So everybody's, bottom of the barrel or their end is there. So that's how I found grace. And again, now my kids have been baptized there. COVID rocked the churches.
Jeez. What was their stance like?
Theirs was awesome.
Was it good?
Awesome. Same with my daughter is she'll be in her 5th year, 4th grade Trinity Lutheran over there, and they did a great job as a school handling COVID. Again, it was when we were finally allowed to worship in the congregation. Open them doors. They turned it to 3 services instead of 2 to keep the crowd down. They kept 2 rows in between. Yeah, we had to wear our masks, but same thing with Trinity Lutheran. It was like, let's just get these kids back to school. That's how we originally, I actually bumped into you and knew you as Greg Moore as the individual, not as the community guy and the realtor guy. Was you donated a bunch of that sanitation. Remember when me and John Allen and all those guys did the face mask and the sanitizer? Again, man, if my kids had to wear masks, which I really didn't like the mask, if they had to wear masks to get to school, put a mask on. And let's get these kids back to school. So they did really good. Both the school, my daughter being special needs, at the time she was at Custer, where I don't have anything negative to say about Custer, but just the public schools, it was just, I think in those, in that year and a half, I think she probably went maybe 6 weeks.
I felt so bad for those kids having to do that though. So we were in a weird place where I work from home. Mm-hmm. We homeschool all of our kids. They've never set foot in a government school. Nothing. If you wouldn't have told them that there was a pandemic going on,
they wouldn't have known.
They wouldn't have known. After about 3-4 weeks, I was telling you, I kind of understood what it was. I looked at the data that we had. 2 months in, I definitely went, okay, yeah, it's in the Corona family. Hey, we don't go to grandma's house when we have colds anyway.
Correct.
So, I don't know who wasn't washing their hands after they're using a public bathroom. I thought it was crazy. People were getting mad at that. I'm like, we should all be doing that, okay? You know how many Hep A cases we've had in Monroe County that come to my board because people don't... Golly. So anyway, my point was it was very gracious to where it didn't even really feel like a pandemic. There's a whole story too to where even our sheriff wasn't instituting any of the Governor Whitmer laws because of something I passed at the county board just 2 months prior that I thought was going to pertain to a Second Amendment. Actually ended up pertaining to unconstitutional rules and bans for health department violations that Gretchen Whitmer put in. But long story. My point being though is, man, I saw the kids there too, and you just go, oh, they're all because they really extended, some of these schools really extended that out. They were wearing masks, geez, a year down the road, and you're going, 0.004% of kids are even catching COVID. Can we just let them go to school and not be, have a face rack on for 8 hours a day?
These folks that were telling these kids to stay school, I think they knew what they were doing. Me as a community guy, again, pulling myself out of a private Lutheran school and going into the shelters and feeding these folks and being that guy and really, you don't understand some people's struggle until you're right there with them.
Sure.
Right? And I have to think these politicians knew what they were doing. Not, by the grace of God, your kids and my kids, they might have lost a little bit, my kids, because they weren't going to school, but they were still getting fed. They were still getting taken care of. Some of the people in our community and around us, school is their only place of hope. That's where they're only getting the security of life, where good, competent adults are taking. This might be the only place they're eating. I started thinking about this in 2020, 2021. I'm like, where are these kids eating? Where are they getting any? And we're gonna. I still believe we're gonna see the repercussions of this virus years from now.
That's yet another thing that speaks to a larger issue in our society, that we have children to where a public school or even a private school or whatever is their only place of hope or where they're eating. We go, okay, how do we, I don't know where you stand on this, but as a limited government guy, I'm also a let's solve the bigger problem guy. We don't put Band-Aids on a sinking ship.
Just throwing money at anything.
Good money after bad, or however that saying goes. Let's look at our society and go, why do we have parents that aren't involved in education? Why do we have, single parent homes at such high rates in just about every ethnicity now? Why is the divorce rate at 60%? Why is, and you start looking at these things now, I would say, because we've removed God from this country. And look at, when you remove God from a nation, it's
lawless.
It's not a vacuum. The state now becomes the God. Right? So we have an issue to where the state wants to see everything. They want to know everything. They want to be everywhere. They want to be all powerful. They want to be your sovereign God, because we've removed God from that. That's why we have things like AI and, cameras everywhere and privacy invasion, and because they have to be God, because we've removed God. So we have I would say that's the biggest issue of all. But then, because this goes into owning a business too, which we didn't even touch on. I know we're so far into this, but people don't realize, for those listening out there that are thinking about starting a business, first year, couple years into it, you cannot be let's say, one of the things of being a successful business owner is also being involved in the community, because you are providing a service to the community. Absolutely. I bet you it would take you 10 minutes to list all the things that you've been involved in or are involved in when it comes to nonprofits, special groups, right? Sports teams, supporting other businesses, all these things.
We got a really cool award. I gotta give this to the Little Brown Jug and my employees.
Yeah.
We've used it would take 35 minutes to say that the Little Brown Jug has offered to do this community. Is so awesome what we have out there and what we're able to offer them. We were granted from the ISD, Monroe County ISD. We were awarded the Business Partner of the Year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we bring them out by the school, by the bus load. I actually have now, I have four employees with special needs working right there at the restaurant. And that's the same.
And you have that in your family. So it's like it's kind of like the ministry that the Lord has given you within your family is now, with your
kind of
child.
Circle,
yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. But that's an award we got. And that was,
cool.
I can win barbecue awards and I can do all kinds of stuff like that. But when you're actually like giving folks a shot that didn't have a shot before, and they're some of our best employees. Hands down, the people that you give a shot to become some of the best employees. Yeah. So we do a lot of cool stuff like that.
There's a guy down here who used to own Jim. Oh my gosh, why is his last Jim Nyan? I don't know if you're familiar with him. He used to own Forest View before Rich bought it, and now he owns Miracle Lanes, or one of the bowling alleys in Toledo. But his son is adult. I think he's 28 now, nonverbal autistic, and because of that, he's raised so much money for ISD. I remember going and setting up a playground for him out there, and it's like, that's why it gets on me so bad when I hear like far leftists and progressives talking about businesses and, it's just about profit. And it's like, dude, I know so many small, medium, and some large businesses that give so much money to so many things and do so much that the government can't do. And I would argue that is our place. Churches, nonprofits, businesses, they should be they should be the safety net of society, not necessarily federal dollars.
There's folks that say before these federal programs were in our country, that the folks that weren't so well off were actually getting taken care of better by the 100%. Churches.
Dude, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, if you were out of work or you were,
look at the big picture,
it was the Lutheran and Catholic charities. You could go there, and I'll give you a shout out for your Lutherans again, because they have a lot of organizations where they will go in. You could stay for 2 weeks. They would train you. They would teach you a skill. They would feed you, and then they'd get you back on. It was like, you know how we have the Michigan Works here, right?
Yeah.
It was all done by churches.
Yep.
And it was done more effectively and better. And I've railed against this, and I've said this to the American church, so the listeners have heard this many times, but I'll say it again. I blame the churches.
Oh.
They stepped back and they went, we have these federal dollars to save that. We don't have to do our job in our Great Commission anymore.
Absolutely.
And now we're to the point where the churches are going, well, what happened?
I'll tell you, Grace Lutheran is right there, is like that old, and again, Ike Smith with his one sheet ministry. One sheet ministry will help out a person. You know, you'd come in, and there was just 3 weeks ago, there was a lady that was about to get evicted.
Yeah.
And she, they helped her for a couple months, but again, we're not just, One Sheet Ministry didn't just throw money at this young lady. We said, obviously, things have changed in your life to where you can't afford living here. So we can't just keep on paying the rent. We have to change either your living environment or you need to get you a job. And I think that's what the churches were doing. They were holding these folks. People want to be accountable. They don't. People need to go. We're pack animals. We need to go to work and be part of this community. Yeah. We stay at home and we don't have any interaction. That's where we're. It's not where anybody wants to be. People want to be accountable. They want to work for the things they get. And I think that's what the church were probably doing. So Grace Lutheran, One Sheet Ministry, they still have this commitment to the community where people can come into the office and we can help them.
Yeah.
A lot of churches don't have that.
That's good. Anymore. All right, as we wrap up here, if there's anyone out there that is that is thinking maybe they own a business, entrepreneurs, whatever, I always like to get, when I get other business guys in here, to throw out some knowledge for us that's been through it. What would you give to someone who maybe has a new startup, is thinking of starting a business? Maybe they're younger, heck, maybe they're older too, but it's just their first time diving into that. What would be some wisdom that you could lay on them from what you've experienced over the last, being an employee and now an owner of a business over the last 20 plus years?
Manage over control.
What does that mean, over control?
There's no. It took me being sober to realize that I can't control my staff.
Okay.
When I'm there.
Manage over control. Okay, yeah. Manage
more
over control.
Management, no control.
Okay.
When you go into the business, and it took COVID. Again, I had about a year and a half sober when COVID happened. I'm still a control guy. I'm always going to be wanting to control this and that and this and that. And that's something that I need to get in front of Christ every single day. And
Amen.
So even in 2020, I realized how little control I had over my business.
Okay.
And that was shot. No, wait a second. You're telling me that I have to close my restaurant and I can't have anybody come in. That's how I made my money, Greg.
Yeah, that's how I provide for my family.
You close down my business, that's the complete control of my business. So what I would tell business owners is unfortunately, whether you like it or not, we have very little control over everything.
Yeah.
And it's about how we manage and learn from the situations. So again, instead of trying to control that guy that's late, it ain't gonna happen. I can do, again, staying in my lane. Yeah. I can help manage him. Maybe help him to manage his life to where he can get back on track and be on time.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. I can't control my own business. So what am I gonna go in there try to, again, good management, less control.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff.
I can't control the people that are coming through the door. I can't control my staff. I can't control the price of goods coming into my my shop. What do I have control over? I have control over how I react to these things coming into my life.
I mean, but you still have principles that guide you, right? All those things in business.
For sure.
You're just saying the micromanaging and the uber control, which honestly,
but that
I
control
find
goes all the way through
all
the
the way through.
business.
Yeah.
Even the control of my office. I have to manage my resources. And again, controlling my resources, that can be a selfish thing where I'm a rich guy and I'm not taking care of my staff in the community.
Right.
Or I can manage my money, know that I'm driving a 2018 F-150. Yeah. I'm driving the oldest vehicle now than I have in my adult life.
Yeah.
And I'm probably a little bit more comfortable now. I could easily afford a new car.
Yeah, but we know those things are liabilities the minute you drive them off the lot. Don't tell John Allen that.
But 2018, it's 2024, bro. I got a 6-year-old car.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That, again, is managing my money and not trying to control, again, my image and things like that.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. All right, cool, man. Jeff, thanks so much for stopping by. I know we could probably go another 2 hours. I got things to do. You got things to do. We're all busy. We'll make sure we link up, though, guys, too. If you are in the area or you're making a road trip to Michigan, you got to check out the Little Brown Jug. Like I said, it is a staple for decades in Monroe County. It pops up on blogs all the time. I think they've been featured on reality shows. It's just one of those things where I like it as a lifelong Monroe County resident.
Imagine my wife. We can't go anywhere in this world, and she's like, unbelievable. Jethro! And Jethro's not even my freaking name, you know?
Right? You guys are in a cruise in Belize. They're like, Little Brown Jug guy. What? Guys, I'll link it up. Go check it out. But, just wanted to have a brother on, talk about it. I'm so glad you chopped it up with us. And, man, God bless.
Thanks for being here, man.
Cool.
Christ be the glory.
Yeah. Guys, remember, as always, chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. God bless. Be sure to check us out at DMWpodcast.com, where you can purchase the best and snarkiest merch on the internet, support the show, and leave us a review or message. Dead Men Walking can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Dead Men Walking Podcast, and on Twitter X at Real DMW Podcast. The Dead Men Walking Podcast is part of the Fight Laugh Feast Network. For exclusive show content, be sure to download the Pub TV app and become a member. If you're a business that needs to reach hundreds of thousands of potential customers in your demographic, podcast advertising might be for you. Send all inquiries to deadmenwalkingpodcast@gmail.com.
None your biscuit.